Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. Today, we bring you another pre-con deep dive. We're going to break down all the cards in the deck, talk about what the deck is meant to do, how to use it wisely, and if you wait until the end, we are going to offer a few tweaks that we thought might make this deck just a smidge better. But before that, you need to know what the heck deck we're doing. And so Shauna is going to tell us all about that.
All right. So the Duskmourn set has all these crazy, scary places to go to inside one house. And today we are going into the Death Toll commander deck, which is very scary. This deck has Winter, the Cynical Opportunist, as its main commander. That human warlock is a 2/5 for 2, a black and a green that has death touch. And whenever Winter attacks, you mill 3 cards. And at the beginning of your end step, you may exile any number of cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. So this is what delirium is 4 or more card types in your graveyard. And then if you do, you get to put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield with the finality counter on it. Finality counter means that if it dies, it then goes into exile. So you can't keep using it, but definitely this is a great way to use your graveyard. The other commander is Rendmaw, the Creaking Nest. It's a 5/5 for 5, a scarecrow, and it is very scary. Has menace and reach, and when it enters, and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, which some of these have. Each player creates a tapped 2/2 Blackbird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. So, goaded means that they attack everyone else except for you. So, it's a little politicking and giving people little crows. It's kind of scary. So,
Make
this deck,
everyone do the work for you, right?
right? Yeah. So, this deck is definitely a graveyard deck. You use your graveyard as a source of your power. Obviously you have your commander uses stuff in the graveyard, but there's a fine line between using you want that delirium, but you also don't want to empty your graveyard with your commander. So that's the other thing you have to kind of weigh. When should I bring these cards back? Which ones should I bring back? And you want to keep an eye on your graveyard. So it's a very thinking deck for sure. You're going to be calling back some of those creatures and then exiling them. But you want to keep that delirium. So you need the 4 card types in your graveyard. And that's why the having creatures or things with multiple types on them. So like your artifact creature, that is actually 2 things for delirium. It's artifact and creature. So delirium is artifacts, creatures, sorcery, instant, like all the different types. So you need 4 of those. You're also going to try to fill your board with insects and spiders and run over your opponent as well. So there's lots of things going on in this deck, and you'll have to be thinking and playing your graveyard as well as your hand.
Mm-hmm.
These decks also come. Actually, I'm going to let Leslie talk about the what these decks also come with because she knows it better than I
Sure,
do.
just throw it over to me.
There you go. I'll do it next
I
time.
don't know why this it keeps turning me down and it's really ticking me off. Anyways, so these decks come with scheme cards. Scheme cards are essentially just another little sub game of Commander, where you can have someone playing the archenemy, and you quite often hear that when you're playing around the table, and you might have not known what that meant. But basically, you have one villain against 3. Most Commander pods are 4, so it's 3 versus 1. The 3 players play at the same time. The villain gets a special scheme deck that has some very powerful things in it. So it's just another fun way to play the game. If you want to learn how to do that, you can definitely, there's lots of videos out there that you can watch that will show you all of the rules of the game and life totals or things like that. So definitely look that up. But this comes with 10, and if you bought all 4, you'd have 40 new ones, and you can use the old ones in your scheme decks as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I guess that brings us into the breakdown of this deck,
Sure does.
which is also my turn. So
Yes.
I will give you the guts. So mana curve for this deck is it's interesting because we have a whole bunch at 2 and 3. Then it kind of has a regular curve, and then we have 11 at 6 plus. So that does like a big jump after that. Um, Mainly because a lot of your cards can be played from your graveyard, and so
Mm,
that's just a little bit easier to play them. Um, so that's why they've done that. Color breakdown, mostly green with 24, followed by black, and then multicolor. Nice to see so many multicolored cards in this deck. And then we have, of course, 11 colorless, which is more than what you normally see in a deck. And some of that is because we have artifact creatures. Card types, and I said I was going to do something that I didn't do, but I will just say we have 27 creatures in this deck. We have only 8 enchantments and 8 artifacts. However, some of those creatures are enchantment creatures, and some of those creatures are artifact creatures. So that will help
mm,
your artifact and enchantment stuff in this deck. And that scarecrow secondary card that we were talking about that wants 2 types in it, those artifact creatures and those enchantment creatures will proc that.
mm.
So that will be a nice fun thing. So we'll notice those as we go and break down this deck, which brings us
Yeah.
to how we're going to break down this deck. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Shauna.
Alrighty, so we like to follow a deck building formula, and Wizard seems to use it as well. Basically, it says that you need about 15 ramp cards, those cards that get you your mana, about 15 removal as well, whether it's single removal or board wipes and that type of thing. Card draw, 13 of those, about 35 land, and then about 10 other cards that support your 12 high impact cards. So you want to make sure that you have, they might follow your theme or they might help those high impact cards win you the game. So that's what we have for a formula.
Perfect. So our first section is ramp and mana generators. We think you should have about 15, and this deck has 15. Starting us off,
Mhm.
strong is Ren N7 for 5. It's a 5 loyalty planeswalker. You can +1 it to reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all the lands revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Remember, you have a maximum hand size, so don't do that too early. Well, you won't because it costs 5.
Yeah.
Anyway, 0 is put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield, so that's pretty awesome. And then we have some fun things in its minus. So -3 is to create a green tree folk creature token with reach, which can help against those flyers. And then you
Mm.
can -8. And this is one of the really good things if you can get it to -8. It's kind of conditional in this deck though. Return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem saying that you have no maximum hand size, which will stay forever. So no one can ever take that
Yeah.
emblem away from you. So you just get everything back and you have lots of time to play it. And so, yeah, Ren and 7,
Nice.
awesome.
And then we have Burnished Heart. This is a great little 2/2 for 3 artifact creature. So it's those 2 types, which is really great. And one of the things you're going to do with it is you're going to pay 3 and sacrifice it and search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So that will get it into your graveyard where you need to do things with it,
Yep.
plus get land. Yeah.
And then we have Death Cap Cultivator, and that is a 2/1 for 2, and it basically taps for black or green. It has Delirium, which this deck has a lot of Delirium in it. Death Cap Cultivator has Death Touch as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So, what are the card types? We have instant, sorcery, artifact, enchantment, creature, and if a card has 2 types, it counts for both. So
Yeah.
that's another reason to have some of those things. So this one is a creature human druid. The human druid doesn't count. The type is before the little dash on your card if you're looking for it.
There you go. Secure a Tribe Elder. This is another little great way to put things in your graveyard and get your land. So it's a little 1/1 for 1 and green, and you sacrifice it and search your library for basic land card, put that onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So ideally, you're going to use this and declare it as a blocker and then do this, because that way you can save yourself and use it to get some land out on the battlefield.
Yep. And then we have Titania, Natural Force. This is a 6/6 creature for
Ooh,
6. You may play forests from your graveyard. So
sweet.
if you had to put stuff in your graveyard or mill things, it's fine. You can get your land back. Whenever a forest you control enters, you get to create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. And then whenever an elemental you control dies, you may mill 3 cards. So this could be a little bit higher impact, but
Mm-hmm.
it does allow you to get forests in from your graveyard into your onto your battlefield if they're there. So that's why it's in mana ramp.
Yeah. Mulch for it's a sorcery for 1 and a green. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So again, filling your graveyard with stuff that you can possibly use.
Hmm. And then rampant growth, basic card for green commanders. For 2, you get a search your library for basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Rampy, rampy.
Mm-hmm. Grizzly Salvage for black and a green. It's an instant that says reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or land card from among them into your hand, put the rest in your graveyard. This is actually a really good card.
Hmm. And Harrow is a little bit different than Rampant Growth. It lets you go search for 2, but you do have to sacrifice a land. So this is what we call mana fixing. You don't have quite the land you need, so you're going to sacrifice one that you have lots of, go search for that one you need. So yeah,
Yeah. And play the forest again later with Tatiana.
exactly.
Then, of course, we have our artifacts that tap for mana. So the 2 that we are happy to see in the commander decks, Arcane Signet for 2 as your little artifact that lets you tap for any mana of your color or commander's color identity. And of course, Soul Ring, which taps for 2 colorless for only
Hmm.
1.
Yep, and then another 2 mana rocks that we see often is Commander Sphere. It adds taps for any color, and you can sacrifice it to draw a card, so it also fits in the card draw category.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Mind Stone, which taps for colorless, and then you can also sacrifice it and draw a card. So
Yeah. And then 2 of the other kinds of mana rocks, as they call them, that are really great to have are the Golgari Signet. This one, you pay 1 and it taps for both black and green. And then the Talisman of Resilience, similar sort of idea, but this taps for either the black or green, but it does deal 1 damage to you. So they're just great little artifacts to have out there to give your mana.
yeah. And now we're on to our card draw and tutors section. The formula that we use calls for 13. Our deck only has what we figure about 9. So it's a little light on the card draw. You might want to look at that for tweaking your deck. But again, we suggest playing it first and seeing how it goes, because you're playing from your graveyard. So Obnixilis, the Reignited, is our first one.
Uh-huh.
It is a 5 mana cost, 5 loyalty planeswalker. Its +1 is you draw a card. You do have to lose a life because that's what black does. -3 is destroy target creature, so it is also in the removal category, which is nice to see.
Uh-huh.
And then -8, target opponent gets an emblem that whenever that player draws a card, you lose 2 life. So that's their emblem says whenever a player draws a card. So I draw a card, they lose 2 life. They draw a card, they lose 2 life. Someone's playing blue and they draw 15 cards, they lose 2 life for each of those. So
Yeah.
it's a sucky emblem, and if you can get that on somebody, then they will maybe the arch enemy. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Grim Flare. This is I've always really liked this card. I don't know why. The art on it is just, I don't know. Maybe that's my secret boyfriend. But
You like
2/2
the dark
for
and brooding
I like
ones.
the dark and brooding ones. Yes. So black and a green. It's a human warrior with trample. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you surveil 3. So surveil is where you look at those, in this case, 3 cards. I held up 4 fingers. 3 cards to whether you want to put them in your graveyard or not, or leave them at the top of your deck. And again, with that delirium piece, he gets +2/+2 as long as there are 4 or more card types in your graveyard. So he helps make that delirium happen. So
Mm-hmm.
he becomes a 4/4 with trample for 2, which is really great.
Yeah. And Solemn Simulacrum, when it enters, you can search your library for a basic land card. So this can also go in the mana ramp category. But you can also, when it dies, draw a card. So it fits in both of those.
Mm-hmm. Harmonize, wonderful green card for 2 and 2 green that says draw 3 cards. It's pretty awesome.
And we have Night Whisperer, which is a terrifying looking
Yeah.
card.
Yes.
You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life, but that artwork is like my
Very
worst
cool.
fear.
Ooh. Deadbridge Chant is for 4, a black and a green, an enchantment that you're going to have out there. When it enters, you mill 10 cards. So, and at the beginning of your upkeep, at the beginning of your upkeep, you choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. So this little thing is gonna, every turn you get to go randomly find something great in your graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be good, could be bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good tutor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Death Reap Ritual is an enchantment for 4, and it has Morbid. So at the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you get to draw a card. So that's what Morbid is. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically taking advantage of creatures dying.
And that's each end step.
Yeah. So theirs as well. Yeah.
Demonic Covenant. I think this is a new card for 4 and 2 black. It's a kindred enchantment demon. So whenever one or more demons you control attack a player, and there are a few demons in this deck, you draw a card and lose a life. What's nice about this is at the beginning of your end step, you create a 5/5 demon creature token with flying, then you mill 2 cards. And if 2 cards that share all their card types were milled this way, you have to sacrifice this. But that's going to be pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
So your little demons are going to continue to build on your little demons. Your 5/5 demons are going to continue to build on your board.
Right. It's crazy. At the beginning of your end
Mm-hmm.
step, you get a 5/5 demon.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Doesn't matter if anything dies because
Yeah.
you have Morbid then. Anyways.
Yeah.
So into the pit, we throw things when we don't like them. So 3 for an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. Great to have that knowledge. You may
Mm-hmm.
cast spells from the top of your library by sacrificing a non-land permanent in addition to paying their other costs, which will help you with getting your morbid triggers, getting things into your graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you that extra card at the top of your library. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Could be interesting. Removal. We are in the removal section. So there were a couple of removal cards as you saw above us, but the formula calls for 15. And so the deck has about 10 that we found that are specifically for removal. But like I said, there's other removals elsewhere, like Obnixilis. Professor Onyx. So this one could be a high impact card as well, but this Planeswalker is for five loyalty Planeswalker for 4 and 2 black. And on her, like just always happening, is whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So you're going to be doing that lots in this deck. And her +1 is you lose 1 life and look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. So again, helping with that delirium, helping get things in your hand. And -3 is each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. So they need to deal with her, otherwise they lose their good stuff. And then her -8 is each opponent may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life, and you have to repeat this process 6 more times. So I believe Leslie and I were playing a commander game and someone did this to us. I
We
think
didn't pay attention to her
we
being
didn't pay
out. It
attention.
was our fault.
Suddenly, yeah, we died.
Suddenly, shenanigans happened.
Yeah. So watch her. If you're playing
Learn to
against
do by
her.
doing. I believe
Yes.
that's the 4-H
Yes,
motto. Is
exactly.
it? Yeah. Is it the
Mm,
4-H one or the Scouts one?
4-H. It's 4-H.
4-H. Yeah.
Yep.
Haywire Mite. For one, it's a little 1/1. When it dies, you gain 2 life. You can pay a green and sacrifice it to exile. I think it's interesting that it says non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. So it has to be a non-creature there. So cool.
You're doing it to them, though. Yay.
Yeah.
Then we have Noxious Gearhulk. This is a 5/4 with Menace, so he's a really awesome creature, anyways, for 4 and 2 black. But when it enters, you may destroy another target creature, and if a creature is destroyed this way, you gain life equal to its toughness. So it's actually pretty darn good.
And it's an artifact creature, so it has 2
Yeah,
types.
you betcha.
Vile Mutilator.
Ew.
Crow, exactly. For 5/6/7 is a 6/5, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, you also have to sacrifice a creature or an enchantment. It has flying, it has trample, and when it enters, each opponent sacrifices a non-token enchantment, then sacrifices a non-token creature. So it does a lot. It's also a
It's a lot
flyer.
of
It also
removal.
has trample. It's a big beefy guy. It does cost a lot of money, but or
Money.
mana. I think of them as this. I
Ah,
mean, it is magic. Let's be real.
yeah,
It's the same
money.
thing. Um, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Then we have a sorcery, Convert to Slime. It's for 3, a black and a green. I'm pretty sure this is a new card. Look at this crazy art on here. This acid slime going through the roof, down through the floor. You destroy up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target enchantment. So you don't have to have all 3 targets, but hopefully you will. And again, Delirium. Then, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, you create an XX green ooze creature token where X is the total mana value of permanents destroyed this way. Getting rid of their stuff and getting a creature in return. Sounds pretty darn good to me.
Absolutely. And this next one kind of fits in the removal and mana ramp category, which doesn't happen very often. It is a 4 mana cost sorcery, and you get to destroy each non land permanent with a mana value of 2 or less. A reminder that tokens are mana value 0 unless they say otherwise. In Bloomborough, they added some tokens that had a mana value. So,
Yeah.
because they got to keep adding new things. Then you get to add a black or a green for each permanent destroyed this way. So mid game,
Nice.
this might get you a bunch of stuff. A reminder that your mana will empty out at the end of each phase. So if you do this in your main phase, you have to use it all up in one of your main phases. It's a sorcery, so you have to do it in your main phase.
Then we have another new card, Deluge of Doom. I love the art on. It's a sorcery for 2 and a black that says all creatures get -X until end of turn, where X is the number of card types among cards in your graveyard. So this could be really good. And I love the little writing on it is, I told you there were no razorkin down that passage. I never said it was safe. Uh, there's just something else down there. It's very, yeah. We like to
Love
play
it.
D&D, so this
Yeah,
kind of thing is pretty fun.
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Inscription of Abundance is a 2 mana cost instant. It does have kicker, so that's an additional cost you can pay. So if you when you cast it, you can decide to kick it for 3. Choose one, and you can kick it as many times as you want. So choose
Mm-hmm.
one. If the spell was kicked, choose any number instead. Put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. Target player gains X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control, or target creature you control fights target creature you don't control, which is the removal point portion of it. So lots of options in there.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, this spell only needs to be kicked once in order to choose any number of them. So
It's very cool.
yeah,
Then we have a card that's new art, but an old card. The new art is very creepy. Putrefy
very.
for 1, a black and a green. It is an instant that says destroy target artifact or creature. It can be regenerated. Julie thought getting trapped in a doll was the worst fate imaginable. She was wrong.
Why are dolls so creepy, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Oh
All right.
god.
Binding of the Old Gods. This one is a saga. So if you don't know what
Mhm.
sagas are, basically it's just an enchantment. It goes on the battlefield. The first time you put it out, you do chapter 1, and then the next turn chapter 2, and then the next turn chapter 3, and then it goes away. So you on your first turn, you're going to destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Then on the beginning of your fate first main phase on the next turn, you're going to search your library for a force card, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And then the third one, creatures you control gain death touch until the end of turn.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're into the high impact cards section. So the formula calls for 12. The deck has 10, but as you saw, there's a lot of other cards that could probably be high impact as well. But Grist, the Hunger Tide, this is another planeswalker in this deck. 3 loyalty for 1, a black and a green. And it has, as long as Grist, the Hunger Tide, isn't on the battlefield. Isn't on the battlefield. Okay. It's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. So that's interesting. It's an insect somewhere out there. Okay. You +1 is create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, put a loyalty counter on Grist and repeat this process. So there are some insects in this deck, so that would happen. His -2 is you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. So some removal there. And a -5 is each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard.
Yeah,
That's not going to take you very long to get to -5.
no,
So, yeah.
not at all. All right. Demolisher Spawn, another big, beefy, high impact card
Mm-hmm.
for 7. It's a 7/7. It has trample and haste, which is fantastic. And its delirium is that other attacking creatures get +4/+4 until the end of turn. So that's when it
Yikes.
attacks, it just buffs everything up 4/4.
Yikes.
Crazy.
Yes. Then we have another 7/7 trampler, a giant adaphage for 7 as well. That is an insect. Will help your insect-ish things happen. Whenever
Hmm.
it deals combat damage to a player, you create a token that's a copy of it. What?
And then if they both deal, and then they both have to.
Yeah,
It's just
it
crazy.
just
I mean, they got to
insects
block it.
everywhere.
They
Yep.
got to block it. And then we have Hornet Queen for
Mm-hmm.
4 and 3 green. It's just a little 2/2, but it does have flying and death touch. And when it enters, it comes in with 4/1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and death touch. So they can be blockers, they can get in for damage, or you can
Mm-hmm.
use those little 1/1s to sacrifice to Grist if you have it. Yeah.
It's awesome. And there's another insect, Moldgraph Monstrosity. This one is for 4 and 3 green. It's an 8/8 trample. Same diff. When it dies, you exile, then return 2 creature cards at random from your graveyard to the battlefield. Great way to get stuff back again.
Hmm.
This is a new card for this deck.
Kind of fun that it's at random.
Mm-hmm.
Obsessive Skinner for 2 is a 1/1, and when it enters, you get to put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And its delirium is that if you have delirium at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if there are 4 more card types, blah blah blah, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So that's depending on how many opponents you have.
Yep.
You're gonna do it on each of their upkeeps.
Old Stick Fingers. This is a X, a black, and a green. When you cast this spell, reveal a card from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. So you decide what it is. Put all creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. And Old Stick Fingers' power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So, yeah, again, this could be potentially pretty big.
Yeah. Rendma, the Creaking Nest, we did already talk about him, but I'll just quickly go over him. He's a 5/5 for 5 with Menace and Reach. And this is the one that basically puts 2/2 Blackbird creature tokens onto the battlefield that can't attack you every time you play things that have 2 types. And this one has 3 legendary artifact creature.
Ursine Monstrosity is a 3/3 bear mutant. It looks pretty creepy. It's for 3. It has trample. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you mill a card and choose an opponent at random. This guy attacks that player this combat if able, and until end of turn, it gains indestructible and gets +1/+1 for each type card type among cards
Mm-hmm.
in your graveyard. Ugh, crazy.
Very. Ooh, look at this cloak. I wish I had one of those. Is like disappear.
Right.
Whisper silk cloak for 3. Equipped creature can't block and has shroud. So
Mm-hmm.
just
What shroud?
protects your creatures. It means that you can't target it or your opponents can't target it.
Cool. Then we're into the support category. So the formula calls for 10 and the deck has 17. So these are cards that are really good cards. They help your win condition. They help with the delirium piece, but they're not necessarily cards that will win you the game, is basically why we put them in here. So the carrion grub, it is an insect. So again, it helps with the whole insect thing. It's a 0/5 for 3 and a black. And it gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest power among creature cards in your graveyard. So you have a big 7/7 in there. That'd be great. When it enters, you mill 4 cards. So again, it helps in all sorts of ways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Gnarlwood Dryad for 1. It's a 1/1, but it has Delirium +2/+2, and it has Death Touch.
Ishkana Graph Widow, Leslie's favorite spider, 3/5 with reach, and it has delirium. And when it enters, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, you create 3 little 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach. And you can pay 6 and a black, and target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. What?
That's
Making
fun.
spiders.
Mm-hmm. So we want to find other cards that create spiders if we want to capitalize on
Uh-huh.
that card too. So
Yeah.
Moldgraph Millipede is a 5 mana cost 2/2. When it enters, you mill 3 cards, then you put a 1/1 counter on it for each card in your graveyard. So
Creature card.
potentially quite big. Oh, creature card, yeah. Um, Potentially quite big.
Here's a little spider, Nyx Weaver, a 2/3 with 1 black and a green with reach. At the beginning of your upkeep, you mill 2 cards, and you can pay 1 the black and the green and exile the Weaver and return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a great way to get something back that you really, really want.
Tell me what you want. What you really, really want.
That's right.
Sorry. Scavenging Ooze for 2. It's a 2/2. This one also fits in the removal category because you're going to exile target card from a graveyard, and then you can put a 1/1 counter on it if it's a creature card, or gain a life if it's not. So,
No, you
oh,
always
and
gain
gain a
life.
life. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you can remove other things from people's graveyards if you need to as
Yes,
well. So it's a nice little
definitely.
removal for those people bringing things back.
Yep. Skola Grave Dancer, it's a 2/2 enchantment creature, so it's got both 2 types there. For 1 and a green, whenever a land card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain a life. And you can pay 2 and a green and mill a card. So it's just, again, helping with that mill thing and keeping you alive as well.
Yeah. Whenever Stitcher Supplier comes in, you get to mill 3 cards, helping you with your delirium. Little 1/1.
Suspicious Bookcase. I love the new art on this card. It's a
Mm-hmm.
0/4 for 2, a defender. It's an artifact creature. So there's the 2 types. And you can pay 3 and tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Woohoo!
And Formless Genesis for 3 is a
Ugh.
kindred sorcery shapeshifter. So changeling, this card is
Spider.
every creature type. So yeah. But it's a sorcery, so it's not a permanent. But create a XX colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling and Death Touch, where X is the number of land creatures in your graveyard. And then it has Retrace, so you can cast this card from your graveyard by discarding land card in addition to paying its additional costs. So, yeah.
It's just creepy. Reanimate. It's a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard, so any graveyard, onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value, but that's okay. You're going to still have something nice.
It's okay.
There's a spider.
Arachnogenesis for 3 is
Mm,
an instant that allows you to again create X11 green spider creature tokens with reach,
one,
where
two.
X is the number of, yes, 1, 2, number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures.
Grapple with the past. This is some fun new art for it in this set. For 1 and a green, it is a little instant that says mill 3 cards. Then you may return a creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. It's a great
Yeah.
little thing. It's kind of creepy art, but
And this is another get things back from the graveyard
yeah.
card. Whip of Erebos for 4. Creatures you control have lifelink, which is kind of irrelevant in our opinion, unless you have a win condition around life gain. But 4 mana cost, tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next step. So you only get it back for 1 turn, and then it no longer supports your delirium. So be sure to make sure that you know what types
Mm,
you're taking out of your graveyard. And if it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate only as a sorcery. So lots of stuff to think about, but definitely a good support card for this.
yeah. Cemetery Tampering. It's for an enchantment for 2 and a black that has Hideaway. So when it enters, you look at the top 5 cards of your library and exile one of them face down and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 3 cards. Then, if there are 20 or more cards in your graveyard, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So you're hiding something awesome. Your graveyard gets full, and you can suddenly let the awesome thing come out for free. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm. A crawling sensation for 3 is an enchantment that at the beginning of your upkeep you may mill 2 cards. So that gives you the choice. And whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere for the first time each turn, you create a 1/1 green insect creature token.
They're everywhere. Now we have one of the new card types that came out with the set. This is a room, so they're enchantments. And so with the rooms, you play the card for either side, whichever one, and that room is unlocked. And then you can unlock the other side whenever you can cast a sorcery. So I believe it's sorcery. Yeah, as a sorcery, you can
Yeah.
pay the mana cost of the other one and unlock that room as well. So this one is Polluted Cistern on the one side, which is for 1 and a green. And whenever 1 or more cards are put in your graveyard from your library, each opponent loses a life for each card type among those cards. So that's kind of nice. And then the other side is Dim Oubliette for 4 and a black. When you unlock this door, mill 3 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that would be a great way to get something big
Yep.
out for free. Crazy. Yeah. This deck has 38 lands. There's quite a few lands in these decks that just came out. So that might be where you want to tweak things a little bit. So the formula calls for 34. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. And we're going to get into our tweaks now. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Mm-hmm. So tweaks, these are just cards that we think may be good additions to the deck. They're not the only options, and we definitely love to hear what you would think. But we picked a few that we thought might help you out with some of the things we thought the deck was lacking. The first one is Fall of Gilgalad for 2. It's a saga. It allows you to scry 2 on its first chapter, and then second chapter you get to put 2 1/1 counters on target creature you control. And then number 3, until the end of turn, target creature you control gains. When this creature dies, draw 2 cards. So there was not a lot, or sorry, and then fights. Then that creature fights up to 1 target creature. So it has a little bit of extra removal, a little bit of extra card draw in there, as well as the scrying to get that knowledge. So it's a nice little enchantment add.
Yeah. Then we thought a couple more lands that have a good purpose for this deck that aren't necessarily in there yet. So Shifting Woodland, when it enters the battlefield tapped unless you have a forest, which you're probably going to have, and it has the Delirium on it for 2 and 2 green. It becomes a copy of a target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn, and you can activate only if they're the 4 or more card types. So you can have this land suddenly become that big 7/7 trample dude
Mm-hmm.
doing all the things. So that might be kind of fun. I was going to say Witch's Cottage. This is a just a good little land to have that comes in tapped unless you have three or more swamps. And when it enters, you can, if it enters untapped, you can put something from your a creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So again, just to get stuff back that you might need for later.
Mm-hmm. And then Ever After for 6 is a sorcery that allows you to return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Each of these creatures is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. But Ever After at the bottom of its owner's library. So it's going to go at the bottom of your library. If you get a shuffle, it's going to go somewhere into your library. You could potentially play this multiple times per game. So it's a nice little bring things back from the graveyard, which we didn't think there was enough of in this deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why we have Forever Young as well. This is a simple little sorcery for 1 and a black that lets you put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library. And then you get to draw cards. So it's just a really cheap way to get stuff back that you might
Mm-hmm.
need for later on.
Yeah. Just sucks to mill cards and then just have them sit there
Yeah.
and only support your delirium when it's that big creature. And then we have Balustrade Worm, which has delirium on it, which is why we thought it would be a good add. Of course, it can't be countered. It has trample and haste, and it's a 5/5, which makes it good, but also it has delirium. Pay 4, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So you can then bring it back from the graveyard again if you need to. So, and a finality counter just means that once it dies, it gets exiled. So you can only do that once.
Same with this Foot Bottom Feast. It's similar to the Forever Young. It's an instant, though, for 2 and a black that says put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library and draw a card. So it's exactly like Forever Young,
Yeah.
but an instant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And of course, anyone that wants to be a little bit degenerate should put children in their deck. For 5, it's a 4/5 and it has menace, enters the battlefield. Each opponent sacrifices a non token creature or planeswalker, so it has some removal. It also has pay 4, exile it, and return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. You can only do that as a sorcery. And only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. So it's a later game thing, but when you flip it over, you get a saga, which is the true scriptures. For each opponent, destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Then chapter 2, each opponent discards 3 cards and mills 3 cards, which is amazing. And then it's number 3, put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control, exile the true scriptures, then return it to the battlefield. So you just get it back after you use it. I mean, why wouldn't you want this? It brings things
Yeah.
back from the graveyard. It has removal. It's got menace. It's ridiculous. It's a good ad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Whispers of Emacruel. This is a little sorcery for 1 and a black that's just going to help you deal with your opponent's target opponent discards a card at random, and delirium if there are 4 more card types among your in your graveyard, that player discards 2 cards at random instead. So just to mess with your opponents a little bit and take them off of their game so that you can take over the game.
Yeah. And then Farika, God of Affliction, is a nice multi type creature. For 5/5, it's indestructible and it's a god, so it doesn't come online unless your devotion is less than, or if it, unless your devotion is more than 7 or more. And then you can pay 2 and exile target creature card from a graveyard. Its owner puts a 1/1 black green snake enchantment creature token with death touch onto the battlefield. So it's like, I'm going to take something out of your graveyard that you can potentially get back, but you're going to get a little snaky snake.
Yeah. And then we were thinking the Swarm Weaver, which came out in this set, would be perfect for this deck. It's a little scarecrow artifact creature for 2 and a black and a green, a 2/3. And when it enters, you create 2/1/1 black and green insect creature tokens with flying. And then if, with Delirium, as long as there are 4 more card types among them, insects and spiders you control have +1/+1 and have death touch. So it could be really, really good in this deck. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we have another double-sided card that we thought might be good. Altar of the Wretched for 3 is an artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice a non-token creature. If you do, draw X cards, then mill X cards, where X is that creature's power. Again, getting stuff in your graveyard, allowing you to sacrifice things to trigger other things. Craft with one or more creatures, so you can pay 4 and remind me what craft does. You put it on a
You
creature,
exile it. You exile. It
exile
just
that creature, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then you can pay 2 and return it from your graveyard to your hand. So yeah,
So
from your
craft makes
graveyard
the other side come out.
turns the other side.
Yeah.
So once you craft it, Wretched Bone Mass's power and toughness are each equal to the total power of exile cards used to craft it. Right.
Yeah.
And it has flying as long as the exile cards crafted have flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Protection, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. So it just basically turns all of your things that you sacrificed into one big blobby creature that does all of those things.
We just thought it would be fun, and it fits with the horror of this
Yeah.
deck. Then there's the Archon of Cruelty. This is a great little 6/6 flyer, so you could use it for 6 and 2 black. And whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life. You draw a card and gain 3 life. It just fits with this deck.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's a 6/6 flyer, right? So sometimes you just need to get in there for that damage.
Mean. It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's it for our tweaks. Thank you so much for watching. We definitely would love to connect with you on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Let us know how you would tweak this deck. That's it for this time. But until next time,
tap those magic cards and have fun doing it.
Bye, guys.